Allo, allo, it's Nia. Welcome to AI Creator World Podcast, the place where creators learn how to grow faster, build smarter, and turn artificial intelligence into real opportunity. Here, we explore powerful AI tools, content strategies, personal branding systems, and new ways to create income in the digital era. If you are building something online, you are in the right place. Let's begin.
Imagine you're just scrolling through your feed right now. You pause on a video of this travel creator, right?
Huh?
And they're reviewing this gorgeous hidden cafe in Tokyo.
Oh, yeah, those are everywhere.
Right. And you really like their aesthetic. You totally agree with their take on the matcha latte, so you hit follow. And over the next few weeks, you start developing this, well, basically a subtle parasocial relationship with this person.
You start looking forward to their updates.
Exactly. You trust their recommendations, and then you find out they don't actually exist.
Yeah, that's the wild part.
They were entirely manufactured in a lab, literally by a solo creator just sitting in a basement. And the entire operation, from the initial concept to having a thriving, super engaged community, it took them exactly 30 days.
Which, I mean, it sounds like complete science fiction, but it is effectively the new reality of the creator economy.
It's insane. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Whether you are actively trying to launch a virtual creator yourself, or you're just, intensely curious about how the modern internet actually works behind the curtain, you are definitely going to want to hear this.
Yeah, we are looking at a highly structured, step-by-step 2026 guide from the AI Creator World team. It's basically a leaked blueprint.
Right. Our mission today is to kind of cut through all that overwhelming technical jargon around AI and really reveal the surprisingly human operational framework that makes these virtual influencers successful.
And honestly, the most fascinating takeaway from this document hits you right on page 1. The guide argues that the biggest mistake beginners make in this space, it actually has almost nothing to do with the technology itself.
Wait, really? It's not about the AI?
Not at all. I mean, the failure point isn't a lack of skill with AI image generators or, voice synthesizers. The failure point is a complete lack of strategy.
So,
Yeah. Most aspiring creators, they approach this by just posting randomly, like whenever inspiration happens to strike. But the document makes it crystal clear that relying on inspiration is basically a death sentence for a new account.
see, I want to push back on that immediately because that just feels completely counterintuitive to how you naturally think about art or content or, building a brand.
It does feel wrong, yeah.
Right, because the guide sets up this really stark contrast between the trap of inspiration versus the algorithmic reality.
Yeah.
It actually claims that 4 totally average posts on a consistent schedule will outperform one absolute masterpiece if that masterpiece has no follow-up. Like, is that really what it's saying?
It is exactly what it's saying. And, to understand why that happens, you really have to look at how the categorization engines at places like Instagram and TikTok actually function.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, these platforms, they aren't art critics, right? They are data distribution machines. Their entire design is to keep users on the app so they can serve them ads. Therefore, they use posting consistency as a primary signal of reliability.
So it's all about trust with the machine.
Precisely. When you publish on a reliable cadence, the algorithm flags your account as a reliable content source, and then it starts testing your content with broader audiences. But if you post sporadically, you're just deprioritized as unpredictable.
Because it can't rely on you.
Exactly. The algorithm simply doesn't care how beautiful that one sporadic post is because it doesn't know if you're going to keep users on the app tomorrow.
It reminds me of a needy friend.
Oh, totally.
Like, the algorithm is that friend who would much rather get a quick, predictable, hey, thinking of you,
Yeah.
text from you every single morning, rather than waiting for you to write them one grand, elaborate 10-page handwritten letter once a month. The platform just craves that predictable pattern.
That's a great analogy. And that predictable pattern, it doesn't just feed the algorithm, it actually solves a massive human problem for the creator, too.
How so?
Well, from a psychological standpoint, having a highly structured plan completely eliminates creative decision fatigue. When your topics and your posting days are already completely predefined, sitting down to work becomes just an exercise in execution.
Not invention.
Right. You aren't staring at a blank screen wondering, what should my AI avatar do today?
Okay, so if you're listening and you're launching this 30-day sprint, you might think your very first step on day 1 is to fire up an image generator and just start making pretty pictures of your new digital creator.
Which is what everyone does.
Right, but the guide stops you cold. The entire first week of this blueprint involves exactly 0 posting.
0. Architecture before action.
So what are you actually doing in week 1 then?
The first phase starts with what they call a niche audience clarity session. The guide instructs you to use ChatGPT, the text-based AI, to analyze your broad interests and find very specific, underserved areas.
Areas with actual demand.
Exactly. Clear audience demand and strong potential for future brand partnerships. You aren't just guessing here. You're documenting a precise target audience. You have to identify 3 dream brands you eventually want to sponsor your AI and select 3 human competitor accounts to study.
So you're treating this fake person like a very real startup business from minute 1.
Absolutely. And only after that business plan is completely locked down do you even touch the visual identity.
And the source outlines a really fascinating process here using Midjourney. For those that are familiar, Midjourney is an AI tool that turns text prompts into, like, hyper-realistic photos.
And it's incredibly powerful for this.
Right, so the guy tells you to generate 20 to 30 character variations until you find a really distinctive face and style. But then comes this crucial technical mechanic. You have to lock in what are called character reference prompts.
This is the mechanism that makes the entire illusion possible. Without this, the whole thing falls apart.
Explain how that works, because it sounds complicated.
It's actually pretty elegant. A character reference parameter acts as an anchor point for the AI's diffusion model. It essentially tells the software, hey, whatever new scenario or lighting I ask you to create next, keep the cheekbones, the eye spacing, and the skin texture of this specific face completely identical.
Wow, so it enforces consistency.
Exactly. Without that locked-in parameter, your AI influencer would look like, a slightly different cousin of themselves in every single post, which instantly breaks the illusion for the audience.
Okay, so once that face is locked, the blueprint forces you to define your content pillars. These are the recurring themes that will anchor your entire calendar. And I'm surprised to see the guide dictates exact percentages for your content mix.
It's very prescriptive.
Right, so the first pillar is lifestyle and personality, taking up about 25 to 30% of your output. This is the highly polished, aesthetic material, like your AI drinking a coffee or just walking down the street.
The vibe stuff.
Exactly. And its only job is to attract new followers by establishing a really compelling visual vibe.
But the guide is quick to point out that the vibe isn't enough to actually grow. The most critical pillar, which takes up 40 to 50% of your calendar, is value and educational content.
So tutorials, tips, step-by-step guides related to whatever your niche is.
Yes. And the guide highlights a very specific algorithmic reason for this dominance. On Instagram, save rates. The number of users who physically bookmark your post to look at it later, those are the single strongest signal of quality.
That makes perfect sense when you think about the platform's ultimate goal. Like, a like is just a passive scroll by. It literally takes a fraction of a second.
Right, it doesn't mean much anymore.
But a save tells the algorithm, hey, this user is going to deliberately open the app again tomorrow just to reference this specific post. That equals guaranteed future ad revenue for Instagram. And obviously, educational content gets saved more than anything else.
Precisely. You are essentially trading utility for algorithmic favor. Then the third pillar is trending and entertainment, which is roughly 15 to 20%.
So jumping on viral trends.
Yeah, taking viral platform audio or trends and adapting them specifically to your niche for a quick spike in reach. And finally, the fourth pillar is promotional content, which the guide insists must be kept to an absolute minimum in the early days.
And when you do finally post a brand deal, it has to be visually indistinguishable from your organic lifestyle content. Because if it registers as a traditional ad, users are just going to instantly swipe past it.
Nobody wants to watch an ad.
Right. Looking at these 4 pillars, it really feels like constructing a highly specific nutritional diet for the algorithm.
Oh, I like that.
Think about it. The lifestyle content is your protein. It builds a visual identity and keeps the account's presence strong. Then the educational content, that's your complex carbohydrates. It provides a long-term, sustained energy and follower loyalty through those high save rates.
And the trending audio.
That's like a shot of caffeine. It gives you a massive temporary spike in reach, but you will absolutely crash if you try to live on it. And then the promotional content is dessert. Serve too much of it, and your audience gets sick and just unfollows.
That is a brilliant way to put it. A caffeine spike without the complex carbohydrates to sustain the new audience is totally useless. And this is exactly why the guide has you map these specific pillars to dedicated days of the week.
So you're never just guessing what to post.
Exactly. Educational posts every Monday and Thursday, lifestyle on Tuesdays and Fridays, and so on. It creates this totally unshakable skeleton for your content.
But, practically speaking, how does a solo creator actually pull this off? I mean, we have this brilliant architectural blueprint now, but generating all these distinct assets, the photos, the videos, the scripts, it sounds like a full-time job for an entire production studio.
It does sound overwhelming.
Right.
Yep.
So how do you do this without being chained to your desk for 10 hours a day?
The guide solves this through ruthless operational efficiency. So once that week 1 planning phase is done, you enter week 2, the manufacturing phase. And the entire goal here is to generate a full 2-week buffer of content in just 2 highly focused batching sessions.
Wait, so you don't create a post on the day you intend to publish it?
Never. The toolstack workflow they outline for this is incredible. It's literally an assembly line. First, you open ChatGPT and you generate 20 content ideas based on your defined pillars. You select the best 10 for immediate production.
Okay.
Then you shift entirely to visual production. You generate all your static images in a single Midjourney session using those locked-in character reference prompts we discussed earlier.
Notice the insistence on single tasking there. You do not generate an image, write its caption, and then go back to generate another image.
Oh no. The guide warns that task switching totally destroys your flow state and eats up hours of time. So they demand that once the raw images are generated, you immediately move all of them into Canva, the graphic design platform, to apply your specific brand colors, fonts, and text overlays in one continuous sweep.
That is so efficient. And the video workflow follows that exact same ruthless logic, right? You take your batch of video scripts from ChatGPT. You move into an AI avatar platform like HeyGen or DID, and these platforms are wild if you haven't seen them. They take your static Midjourney face, and they map a synthesized voice track onto it, actually forcing the lips to sync perfectly with the audio.
The tech is unbelievable.
So you generate all the raw videos sequentially. Then finally, you pull all those raw clips into an editing app like CapCut to add your auto captions and background music all at once.
It is a marvel of automated efficiency, but, and this is where it gets really interesting, inside all this heavy robotic automation, the source highlights this fascinating 2 to 3 minute microstep during the caption writing process.
The authenticity detail.
Yes.
This detail completely blew my mind. The guide states that after you use ChatGPT to batch write all your captions, you cannot just copy and paste them.
No, that's a trap.
You have to manually intervene. You literally have to spend a couple of minutes typing in a highly specific, slightly quirky human touch, like a recurring slang phrase your character uses, or a typo, or a strangely specific opinion about something totally mundane.
It's the ghost in the machine. AI-generated text feels flat because it lacks idiosyncratic flaws. It's just too perfect. So the guide explicitly notes that this tiny manual injection of human imperfection is the primary differentiator between an AI account that feels authentic and one that just feels like a lifeless corporate script.
The irony is just staggering to me.
I know, right?
You have a multi-million-dollar stack of artificial intelligence tools working in perfect harmony, but the entire illusion falls apart if a human sitting in a basement doesn't manually type out a quirky opinion about wanting a blueberry muffin.
The imperfection is literally the secret sauce.
It absolutely is. So at this point in the 30-day timeline, your content vault is completely full. You have your architecture built, and you have a 2-week buffer of finished posts ready to go. Now, you finally release this virtual creator into the wild and face the platforms.
Which means it's time for week 3, time to play the algorithmic game. The guide provides a really sharp breakdown of the mechanical differences between Instagram and TikTok.
Because you can't just blast the exact same file to both apps and expect it to work.
Exactly. Instagram supports long 2,200 character captions. And because Instagram heavily rewards those saves we talked about, your captions there need to be structured as detailed step-by-step breakdowns or resource lists. People need a reason to save it.
But TikTok operates on a completely different psychological wavelength.
Entirely different. The guide notes TikTok captions should be incredibly short, like under 150 characters. The platform culture dictates that the core information shouldn't be neatly formatted in the caption. It needs to be delivered via spontaneous feeling text overlays right on top of the video itself.
It has to feel slightly messy.
Exactly. And while you're doing this, you're testing these platforms in real time, obsessively tracking what the guide calls the early engagement window.
Which is the first 60 minutes after a post goes live.
That first hour is the crucible. The platform's algorithm essentially conducts a batch test. It shows your new post to a very small subset of your audience. If those users stop scrolling, watch the video, or interact within that 60-minute window, the algorithm interprets the signal as, hey, this keeps people on the app.
And then it pushes it to a wider audience.
Right. But if that initial test group ignores it, the post effectively dies right there.
So to maximize your chances of surviving that crucible, the guide introduces a strategy called the repurposing loop, or reverse repurposing.
This is such a time saver.
It really is. It suggests taking a scripted short video like an Instagram reel and a few days later extracting the exact same main points to create a multi-slide image carousel. Or, conversely, taking an educational carousel, feeding the text back into your AI avatar platform, and having your virtual influencer narrate it as a 30-second video.
It is just a brilliant way to multiply your output exponentially without requiring a single new idea.
But, I immediately wondered about audience fatigue when reading this.
Sure.
Like, if you were just slicing up old content and repeating the exact same message verbatim 3 days later, aren't your followers going to feel like they're being spammed?
It seems like they would, but the source relies on the actual mechanics of algorithmic distribution to counter that fear. Carousels and reels serve totally different distribution mechanisms, and they capture entirely different audience segments.
How so?
Well, reels are generally pushed to the main feed to capture viewers who prefer rapid-fire video, so that drives massive top-of-funnel reach. Carousels, however, are favored by users who prefer to read, who search via hashtags, and who actively look for high-value content to save.
I love that strategy. Let me build on that with another analogy.
Go for it.
It's like fishing in the exact same lake, but dropping two totally different types of bait at two completely different depths. You are catching completely different fish without ever having to move your boat.
That's spot on.
The overlap of people who will actually see and register both the video and the text carousel is statistically tiny.
Exactly. You are doubling your algorithmic real estate with zero extra conceptual work. So as you deploy these posts, the account obviously begins to gather history. And this moves you into the final phase, week 4, of the 30-day blueprint.
Where the focus shifts entirely from making content to engineering a community.
I find the phrase engineering community so wonderfully cynical, but it's incredibly accurate because community on these platforms doesn't just spontaneously happen, it is meticulously prompted.
Right. And the source outlines a very specific strategy for generating comments using what they call a frictionless question.
The mechanics of this are fascinating. Many creators end their captions with deep, open-ended questions like, what does your morning routine look like?
Which sounds nice in theory.
Right, but the problem is, answering that requires the user to stop, synthesize their thoughts, and type out a whole paragraph. It introduces massive friction, so the user usually just keeps scrolling.
Instead, the guide tells you to ask something entirely binary, like morning coffee or tea.
Yes. It takes a microsecond for a user to type the word tea.
And here's the kicker, right? To the algorithm, a one-word comment counts as the exact same engagement weight as a deeply thoughtful 3-paragraph essay.
It's just a data point to the machine.
Exactly. Low-friction questions trick the system into generating massive comment volume, which triggers broader distribution.
And the creator's responsibility doesn't end there either. The guide enforces the golden hour rule. You must reply to every single comment you receive within that first hour.
Because it proves to the algorithm that the creator is actively online.
Right. Maintaining conversations keeps other users lingering on the app waiting for a reply, which is exactly what the platforms want.
And to deepen that community feel, you also deploy narrative continuity. You start explicitly referencing your own past posts. Like your AI avatar might say, last week I showed you the strategy for X, and today we were looking at the results.
Which acts as a reward for the people who have been following along. It makes them feel like insiders.
Yeah, but if a new person stumbles onto that post, they suddenly feel like they walked into the middle of a movie. It forces them to scroll back through your archive to catch up on the lore. And binge-watching archive is a massive positive signal to the algorithm.
Every single action is designed to generate a positive data signal, which leads directly to the final critical discipline of the 30-day plan, the monthly analytics review.
Because you can just guess what worked.
Exactly. You use analytics tools like Metricool or whatever to focus intensely on the big 4 metrics to plan your next month.
The guide identifies those big four very clearly for us. First is your reach per post. Like, are you actually getting onto non-follower screens? Second is the engagement rate. The benchmarks provided are aiming for a 3 to 5% engagement rate on Instagram and 5 to 10% on TikTok.
Which is pretty standard.
Right. Third is the save rate, specifically targeting 1 to 2% on your educational value content. And fourth is your weekly follower growth rate.
So you sort your content by those metrics to identify the top 3 performers in each category. Then you look for the hidden variables. Did the top posts all use the same hook? Were they all posted at 8:00 a.m.? Did they all use a specific visual color palette? You have to analyze the data to find the pattern.
But, and this is crucial, the guide attaches a massive warning label to this optimization process.
Oh, the scientific method rule.
Yes. It states that when you tweak your strategy based on this data, you must apply the scientific method. You can only adjust one variable at a time.
This is where so many people mess up.
Right. If you notice educational carousels are performing well, you might decide to add one more of them to your weekly schedule. But you must hold everything else constant, Paul, your posting times, your visual style, your other pillars, and wait another 4 weeks to observe the result.
Because if you change 3 things at once, you'll have absolutely no idea which change actually caused your metrics to rise or fall.
It is cold, clinical, scientific iteration applied to social media influence.
It really is.
Let's take a step back and just look at the sheer scale of the journey we've unpacked for you today. We started by dismantling the romantic myth of the inspired, spontaneous creator. We moved through the rigorous architectural planning of finding a niche and locking in a consistent, mid-journey generated face.
Week 1.
Right. Then we walked the floor of the AI batching factory, generating scripts, images, and lip-synced videos in highly efficient bursts, ensuring we manually added that crucial, flawed human touch. We played the algorithmic platform game, utilizing reverse repurposing to catch different audiences. And finally, we engineered a community through frictionless engagement and rigorous data analysis.
When you look at the entire framework laid out from start to finish like that, it completely shatters our cultural understanding of what an influencer even is.
Yeah.
We are sold the illusion of an effortless, personality-driven lifestyle. But the reality of building a successful virtual creator is a highly disciplined, systematic, and frankly unglamorous operational grind.
It really is a grind.
Yeah.
And the guide brings this home brilliantly at the end. It notes that the single hardest part of this 30-day blueprint for any beginner isn't figuring out the prompts or mastering the video editing software.
The tech is the easy part.
Exactly. The ultimate failure point is the sheer human discipline required to stick to those batching sessions and maintain that relentless posting schedule when the growth is agonizingly slow in those first few weeks. The face is fake, but the hustle is entirely real.
And that leaves us with an incredibly provocative reality to consider as this technology scales. I mean, right now, we have a human manually engineering this artificial community, typing out frictionless questions to trick an algorithm into sharing a fake face.
Right, there's a human pulling the strings.
But if a single human can systemize this entire process in 30 days using off-the-shelf tools, well, what happens next year?
Oh, man.
What happens when these AI influencers are granted autonomous agency to start commenting on each other's posts? Imagine thousands of artificial personalities manufacturing their own drama, debating each other, and building massive, algorithmically optimized communities together, completely removing the human from the loop entirely.
Are we just building the architecture for a totally synthetic internet?
If the human is the one driving the consistency, the strategy, and the engagement right now, who is the real influencer? Is the AI just a highly advanced puppet, making the unseen human the most authentic part of the entire operation?
Definitely something to keep you up at night next time you're reading the comment section. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to AI Creator World Podcast. If you found this episode valuable, make sure to follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube, and share this episode with another creator who is building their future online. For deeper guides, AI tools, and step-by-step growth strategies, visit our website at aicreatorworld.net. And remember, in the age of artificial intelligence, creators who learn faster will lead the future. See you in the next episode. Bye!